Hello everybody, my name is Corinne Sawsville. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the death penalty. The mind of a murderer is a mystery. For centuries, people and societies have struggled with the methods required to control and punish these monstrous criminals. How do you handle someone who has willingly taken the life of another human being? Once one has committed such a violent act, it is impossible to erase what has been done, as that time in jail will never fix the problem at hand, for nothing can rehabilitate the mind of a cold-blooded killer. This is where one of the most controversial topics in America comes into place, the death penalty. The debate over whether or not the death penalty is moral or immoral seems to be a never-ending conflict. In Hugo Bedot and Paul Cassell's book of reflection on the American capital punishment policy, these two lawyers reflect on how to approach their task while keeping their morals intact. They realize that they are essentially declaring somebody's death, though they do not believe they are the cause of this death. They believe the criminal's actions were the means to their end. While they try to assess the situation properly, it is a harsh reality that they do not try to sympathize for somebody who has caused so much damage. Instead, they try to sympathize and fight for the loved ones of the victim. As they show when they write, it's much easier to be forgiving if someone you love hasn't been butchered by some sociopath. They even believe that the murderers are in some way getting off easy, or at least have a more peaceful death than their victims, because as they go on to say, in criminal murder, there's no someone in need, no opportunity to make peace with your maker or say your last goodbyes. These victims never had a chance to say goodbye to the people they loved, never had a chance to make amends for any wrongdoings, never had a chance to reflect on their own life, as these murderers have the luxury of knowing when their death will be. When it comes down to it, the perpetrator has settled their own fate based on the morals they chose to follow. The government is merely carrying out what society has deemed right and wrong, while capital offenders have chosen to pursue an immoral destiny. Another sensitive area regarding this topic is the position claiming the death penalty to be in fact unconstitutional. The Eighth Amendment to the Constitution of the United States provides, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. The idea of killing a lethal criminal has sparked dispute as to whether or not such a verdict is or should be considered as a cruel and unusual punishment in violation of the Constitution. Using the DPIC, Death Penalty Information Center, online, I took a look back in time to see how the world has evolved and how the different methods of carrying out this punishment have reformed. I found that originally, the belief that one should be put to death for stealing the life of another human being was practiced throughout the ages, in times as early as 18th century BC with the Code of King Hammurabi, which was composed of the policy an eye for an eye, meaning a citizen, if they were to commit murder, they would receive the same fate as well. Executions during this time were carried out by means as crucifixion, drowning, beating to death, burning alive, even impalement. An article from thisnation.com states, various legal interpretations of the meaning of cruel and unusual have been offered, but generally the term cruel is taken to mean excessively painful or brutal. I would agree the methods of capital punishment described above, that I described before, are definitely cruel and unusual. I mean, clearly burning someone at the stake causes unnecessary suffering and is extremely painful. And even more recent forms of punishment, like used in the 1900s with electrocution and hanging, could be considered harsh measures. However, the most common method used today is through lethal injection, which is in no way brutal and is the least painful method currently available. The Supreme Court considered this issue exhaustively and found that the use of lethal injection does not violate the Eighth Amendment, on top of the fact that execution process today is completely legal and constitutional. The crimes that are considered capital offenses are almost entirely limited down to premeditated murder. At one point, the death penalty was barbaric and used without just cause, fitting the description of unconstitutional. But today, however, I believe it constitutes of the bare minimum needed necessary to effectively but humanely remove murderers and demons from society. Though it seems callous, some argue that the death penalty is not cost-effective due to the lengthy appeals and should therefore be removed. It is true that capital punishment is certainly very cost-effective, or very cost-consuming, as I found out on deathpenalty.procon.org, where it averaged about $2 million per capital punishment case. But one must also consider the alternative options if they were to remove the death penalty. If it was banned or abolished, guilty first-degree murderers would be sentenced to life in prison, with or without parole. Examining the first case scenario, having life sentence with parole, the problem is obvious. Prisoners with parole have the opportunity to limit their sentence and re-enter the world it costs so much to first of all remove them from. Once someone has committed such a heinous and awful crime, I feel it's our responsibility to keep them locked away from the world for good by allowing them the possibility of being able to migrate back into society. I believe this is rewarding them for taking away someone's life and ruining the life that individual's entire family and loved ones of the victim. Murderers will not take this punishment seriously, knowing that they can make their way out of jail and get off easy from their original life sentence, which then leads to the second predicament. If you eliminate parole from a criminal's life sentence, you will discover a dramatic price difference. Just for All, a criminal justice reform organization calculates that life without parole cases will cost $1.2 million to $3.6 million more than equivalent death penalty cases. Although the upfront costs for the death penalty are extremely expensive, it is proven that equivalent life without parole cases are in fact more expensive when added up over time. Other than money, people have to factor in overcrowding in prisons due to the amount of prisoners with life sentences that are going to be spending the rest of their lives in jail cells. The death penalty is just an important attribute to maintaining a balance, and even though it is pricey, there are certain situations where the pros just outweigh the cons. In Theodore Roosevelt's own words, as regards capital cases, the trouble is that emotional men and women always see only the individual whose fate is up at the moment, and neither his victim nor the many millions of unknown individuals who would in the long run be harmed by what they ask. The truth about the world is that there are some people who just don't belong in it. Nothing is black and white, and it's extremely difficult to determine who deserves to pay the ultimate price for the crimes they've committed. With that said, there are also cases that clearly call for capital punishment. An example would be Gary Leon Ridgway, also known as the Green River Valley Killer. He was caught in November 2001 after finding DNA evidence that linked him to 4 women along the Green River in Washington. The police arrested Ridgway and brought him into custody, and he later confessed to having killed 48 women within a single decade. Admitting, "I killed so many women, I have a hard time keeping them straight." Because he is so willing to share the information, he ends up only getting a life sentence without parole, but no death penalty. Cases like these are horrifying, tragic, and unimaginable. Serial killers, like the Green River Killer, and those who kill without reason are unquestionably too corrupt and troubled to be a part of this world after their acts they willingly committed. If someone is able to plot a murder and go through with it, then they are too sick and mentally twisted to fix or change. And therefore, I think they need to be removed, not just due to the awful, unimaginable actions they took part in, but in respect for the families that they took away from and the lives they selfishly ended. In conclusion, the death penalty ensures that the perpetrators of terrible crimes never have an opportunity to cause future tragedy. Though controversial, the death penalty is a crucial and vital part of the criminal justice system and should be continued and upheld. If a person feels that they have the power to tear away the life of another person, then they should be forced to suffer the consequences of their own actions. Thank you for listening. I hope you all have a good night. Thank you.